welcome to a new episode of the Life Science Get Together podcast. Today we are talking about how to reach out to Big Pharma, and in the call is Natalia from Eli Lilly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christian.
Natalia, can you give us a little bit context about your role and the company you work for, Eli Lilly?
Sure. So I'm working as a Senior Director of Emerging Technologies and Innovation in Business Development, of Corporate Business Development of Eli Lilly. And I'm responsible for search and evaluation of the novel emerging technologies coming from Europe. So before joining Lilly, I was 12 years working at Merck, starting there as a postdoc and working in various roles, ending as a head of strategy for the UK Merck affiliate. I have a PhD in molecular biology, master in microbiology, and diploma in biotechnology, in biochemistry. Sorry. My daughter is just entering the biotechnology course, so it's on top of my mind. So I live with my family in London, and enjoying this big and vibrant city and very much an innovation hub. So about Eli Lilly. So Eli Lilly is a very one of the oldest American companies. Is over 100 years old. Is a first company who started producing insulin for patients and still have a very strong legacy in this indication. So we are we are second company working in diabetes and complications such as obesity, cardiovascular diseases, and I'm really impressed by the internal experts, so very strong internal expertise in the company. Then there is a second oldest indication in Lilly is neurodegenerative diseases. I think the psychiatry used to be the focus of Lilly 50 years ago, and drugs like Zyprexa came out of this company, and now we are mostly focused on neurodegenerative diseases, which are Alzheimer, Parkinson disease, but also rare monogenetic diseases. And the second big indication in the neuroscience, which is just actually relatively recent, but I think very rare for pharmaceutical industry, is pain. Mm-hmm. So Eli Lilly is working in migraine and in neuropathic pain, so chemotherapy-induced neuropathies or lower back pain and things like this. And then the other two very fast-growing indications are oncology and immunology. You might be heard about the deal we made with Loxa Oncology, the acquisition of the Loxa Oncology, and the recent launch of Retevmo as a RET kinase fusion protein inhibitor. And immunology, Lilly is in three areas: in skin, in gastrointestinal, and in general rheumatology. So things like IBD, ulcerative colitis, in gastroenterology, in skin is an atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, and in general rheumatology is, of course, lupus nephritis and rheumatoid arthritis. So, of course, a part of so I'm working across all 5 indications of Eli Lilly, looking for emergent technologies, so more at the opportunities in the earlier stages. But I'm also working a part of, assets, as we call it. I'm also working, looking for transformative technology. So how can we tackle all problems with the new ways? I mean, things like PROTACs, molecular glues, small molecule RNA transcription, modifiers, things like delivery technologies through the blood-brain barrier. So all these technologies are of great interest for us.
It's an amazing range of technologies and indications. I started working in 2006 in the life science industry, and little did I know back then. One question always that's coming up when I mentor companies these days is how should I reach out to potential strategic partners, especially the pharmaceutical industry? Let's just assume that I'm a founder and I have recently founded an oncology company and got some investors in the company, and they put a little bit pressure on me as a CEO and say, hey, reach out to the pharma industry. What is the best way to approach you?
Yes, that's a very, very good example. So I think one thing which is good to do is not to wait till you are late in your, not reaching out after you've done. I mean, it's still possible. After you've done the clinical studies, but actually start to talk to pharma pretty early.
Really?
Yeah. So I really, it does not mean that we transact straight away with you, but it's always good to keep in touch or to start conversation, maybe around proof of concept in animal models, so that we can guide you further on the type of data we would need to see to move forward on the models we are particularly believing. On the various things, we also sometimes we are doing early collaborations with some companies with a very, of course, the prerequisite for this, you would need to have a compelling science and absolutely novel breakthrough, transformative way of solving unmet need. So we help those companies also with some tools. So for example, we can produce crucial antibodies, which would be or give you maybe access to our chemistry, a chemistry cassette which you can screen or advise you on the direction in your chemistry based on our huge database on toxicity information and this kind of thing. So I would suggest you reach out early. So this is in terms of stages, so around proof of concept in animal model. And the second thing is, of course, in terms of where you can find me. I mean, obviously there are those partnering meetings, starting from the huge ones like Bio Europe's or Bio International, but ending with the much smaller local ones, which might be cheaper and supported by your local government. I mean, things like BioBarrier, where Christian, you and me met.
True.
So, but also, I mean, I'm also available on LinkedIn. So I do have regular ping from LinkedIn, and I'm taking it seriously as well. So so it's pretty much, various ways of reaching out. And then I can also, I'm not sure whether you would like to ask me, but to tell you what are my expectations maybe to see from such meetings.
Absolutely. Let's stay a little bit in the narrative and the storyline. So I'm lucky I started the company and have no clinical trials done. So as I understand you, it's the perfect time to reach out to you once I got proof in concept studies or data in animal models. So I have a business background, and let's assume it's the first meeting. We just bump into each other at BioVaria in Munich. And I'm eager to tell you about the findings of my scientists. What information would you like to see in this first 10 to 15 minutes?
Yes. So normally these partnership sessions are a bit longer, but there are those which are, you're right, there are those which are very quick, like a speed dating for 15 minutes. I think normally a session is about half an hour, but some companies are really managing to tell it really in a very short and concise things. And actually, I need four things from you. The first one is I would like to have an information about the team. So who you are and what is the unique expertise of your team, which really makes me, believe that you can make it happen. Mm-hmm. The second thing is science. So people, we are three people here in the UK and responsible for Europe, and all of us have scientific background, and the first evaluation is actually a scientific evaluation. So talk about science, tell me about your story, tell me why do you think this is the winning technology. The third thing is competition. I think it's really important to know your competitors who are and I do see it again and again when companies are not talking about competition, but then we do all have access to competitive intelligence databases, so we'll find it later on the road, and this is even worse. So I think for relationship building is kind of good to kind of open, because it's also, competition is sometimes also helpful. Because you see that there is some traction of this field, and so you're not a single warrior there.
Okay.
So it's sometimes good, but also and it also gives you an opportunity to shine and saying, how do you differentiate from the others, or how much you are similar to the, or whatever. So it's very important, I think. And the fourth thing, which is also often forgotten, is what is your ask? What exactly you are looking for, in the partner. So is it, most of the time it will be maybe funding, but a part of funding, I hope you did some homework and you look at our indications, you look at and you think how you are really complementing the internal pipeline, and what expertise you're looking for. Are you looking for the expertise in clinical development, or are you looking for chemistry, or or you need a help in humanization of your antibodies? And actually, Lilly pretty much prefer to do humanization of antibodies on their own, because they, we have a really high standard in antibody production and kind of trust our facilities a lot. So that could be a good thing to ask for as well.
Let's come back to the storyline. So if I got it right, it's really good to reach out to you with the information you need early on in development. I have a discussion with technology transfer officers quite frequently ongoing. So they try to convince me that pharmaceutical companies also make transactions with discovery stage projects, where my expertise and experience shows that the real transaction happens more further down the road, around clinical phase 1 or clinical phase 2 data. How is the reality? Where is the truth? Is it in the middle, or is it more on the other or left or right side?
Yeah, so I think we did the deals, everywhere on the road, Christian. So starting from an idea and no data, but idea is coming from a very prominent scientist and company builders who already had 3-4 exits before. Even in this stage, the transaction could happen. Unfortunately, as you know, it's normally happened in the US. I mean, we do not have really such a strong entrepreneurs here in Europe yet. And I hope you, with your podcast, are really growing them as we are speaking. And then ending all the way launch product. But I think for me the transaction now happened around the around this, the peak of these deals are happening around between the proof of concept in animal models and the proof of concept in clinical studies. So it could be also in the IND stage, so pre-IND stage. So it's a various thing. So I actually, we would need to make a statistics to see what is the best, but I think this is we're feeling where particularly the emerging technologies and innovation transacting. We do have colleagues, search and evaluation colleagues in the therapeutic areas who are mostly looking for the later stage deals. It's just that these earlier deals are not really, I think sometimes are not communicated as broadly as the bigger deals like acquisitions, but yeah.
No, I think, statistics would be really interesting to see across the entire industry. I have to look it up too. One question popped up in my mind. So I'm working mostly in the early stages to mid stages of development. So it's from tech transfer up to clinical phase 2. And it's really good to know that it makes sense to reach out to pharma early in development. So once we got this proof of concept data in animal models, and it's also good to know that a pharma partner has not only money to provide, but also other expertise. So what type of deals exist at Eli Lilly? I mean, when I think about deals, it's mostly an acquisition or a license deals. Are there also other models?
So the other models include, for example, the production. So something which I mentioned before is the generation of the critical tools important for your current stage, such as antibodies, peptides, or chemistry, with the option to in-license it later. So this is in terms of early deals, but also, of course, there are other things where we start with a little pilot or proof of concept type of interaction, particular on the platform deals, and then it could grow into a huge collaboration. I think the example of such type of deals is the deal from last year on Anima, where we started with a very small pilot study, and then it grew up in the 1 billion deal with this relatively small but very intriguing company.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I wouldn't exactly. So that's why I think there are. I do see sometimes those companies who are feeling shy about small pilots and looking for a bigger deal straight away. So I would recommend not to shy away from this kind of fee-for-service type of pilots in the beginning, because they can grow into bigger deals very quickly within 1 year. The other thing which I forgot to mention is that I'm working with a number of venture funds, which are where Lilly invests as a limited partner, and where we have an opportunity to de-risk some of the assets which may be a little bit too early for our pipeline now, but will be really there in several years when venture funds support their growth and development. So this is another opportunity of kind of it's not really a deal, and this is another opportunity to grow the companies and keep an eye on them, and also helping with our expertise on the way.
It's really good to know. I hear that very often also from VCs. Go out on the market, reach out to pharma and investors early on in development. On the contrary, when I talk to companies, I hear very often quite the opposite. So saying, yeah, we don't need money yet, so it's not useful to go out on the market, or we are not in clinics right now. But my picture changes tremendously, especially also with the talk with you, to get the expectations right. So when a company starts reaching out to you, does that mean a transaction happens a week later, or is it a longer discussion process that we have to expect?
I think it varies, Christian. But I think the week later transaction, this is a little bit a dream. You are dealing with a big corporate company, and we are striving to make our processes as efficient as possible. I think the amazing examples, of course, of the speed of movement is COVID, where in the past 3 months we did so many deals, and we used less than 3 months to move in the first in human dose with the neutralizing antibodies, and we already earlier this week, we published the results from the phase 2. So this is an unprecedented, efficiency in our, processes. But the transaction happens from the moment we first met in the partnering meeting. I would say the minimum time we would need, what I've seen was 3 months, but it could take several years, of course. And of course, during these years, is not that we are just dealing with our internal machinery, is we are refining the case together with you, the business case, and what are the key results we have to see together, what are the key experts we need to bring into the project, and also how to ensure that your project has a real champions inside Eli Lilly who can prioritize your project over their own internal projects, and really that the deal is not dying after the transaction. You also want to see your molecule in the market one day, and not only you're not only interested in money, I hope, but most of the time you are interested in really helping the patients out there. And this is also, so this time is also needed to fully convince the internal scientists, and also fully understand what are the key experiments to be done, what are key studies to be done, how do we go together, who is responsible for what. So all these kind of things have to be refined in this time.
It's good that you mentioned COVID-19 and the SARS-CoV-2 project. I also heard amazing stories of this hyperspeed that our industry is moving right now. So from funding deals, I heard within 6 weeks from the first contact until the closing went by when the money actually was really on the bank account. I also heard it from companies who were acquired by other pharma companies that 6 to 8 weeks in closing the transaction. But I don't. Do you think these changes that we see in the industry will stay for a longer time, or will we go back to a little bit more a relaxed approach for other indications?
Well, we're certainly learning a lot during this COVID, and learning very fast. We hope that some of these lessons, and we are collecting those lessons learned, and in all these inventions which are done on the way, is kind of, I think is a great opportunity for all of us to learn how to be better, and that we can be better. Of course, some of the things, just because of the rigor which is needed particular for chronic indications, cannot be directly transferred from COVID case to chronic indications like diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis. So it's simply would be dangerous for patients. So I do believe that some things will stay, but some but some will be maybe somewhere in the middle. So it's hard to say. But
I
we are
think
learning a lot, Christian, indeed.
that's true. I think safety of patients is always the most important thing that we should be aware of. There was one point that you mentioned that you're talking a lot about collaborations, partnerships, about working together, moving together. So the picture of an industry, of a value chain where projects are handed over, like a transaction, like buying a car, for example. I go to the car dealer, I buy the car, I get the car, it's mine. Seems to me it doesn't really happen in the pharma industry. It looks more to me like that when I reach out to Big Pharma, that it will be a collaboration for a longer time period. Is this picture right that I have in mind right now, or do I get something wrong?
Absolutely. I think it cannot be compared to car. It may be more comparable to a child which you are growing at home, and at some point it need to enter the university and it need to go its own life. So and then you need to go to school first, and then you kind of need to build the trust with the teachers that you're giving your precious child to kind of develop further. So I would imagine this would be a more these relationships which are and this is why the one thing which is important for us and is to build a relationship. I think I started when we were talking about what information we need, I started with a team, and of course the one thing is the expertise, and the second thing is just on the human relationship type of basis. We always look whether we fit in terms of values. What are the values of these companies? How do we fit as a team together?
Mhm.
So, and this relationship building part is very important. And this part is also another thing, while it sometimes takes some time to build this relationship, not just one partnering meeting, but maybe several partnering meetings where we observe the team. We see whether the chemistry works, and we also see the progress of this company, so that we can, later transact with them. And exactly as you say, the transaction is not just we pay, you throw your compound over the fence, and then it's our trouble then. I guess this is not the type of relationships we're looking for. This is really a more and that's why many deals are pretty much backloaded. We are looking for longer term relationships, and we're looking not only for the asset itself, but also for your expertise and moving forward, and your passion to bring this forward together with us.
You're talking about relationships. So I met many companies that were more focused on a single asset. So it's not building a team. It's not putting something together. It's just moving a compound forward until IND or clinical phase 1 with the expectation to hand it over. When I listen today to VCs and also to pharma partners, they talk very often about build a team, build a company, define the values of your company. How do you see that? Is it also possible these days to go with a single asset and don't build a team, or would you really prefer to have more a long-term partner?
Yes, I think most interesting for me, particular for emerging technologies, is really building the long-term relationship. And I think the other reason for that as well is that, particularly in this emerging technologies, this is where we in Lilly often don't have really internal experts. So we need to rely heavily on our external partners. I mean, things like all these beautiful protein modalities, which, this field really expanded a lot, and you cannot be an expert in every single modality. So you really rely on the partner, similar to advanced technologies. We are not a gene therapy company. So we need to really rely on the partnership here. So the building a strong team together with a partner is a prerequisite of this type of relationship. In many fields, we need to have these long-term relationships, and we are dependent on them, I would say. And importance that everything works there, starting from expertise and ending with the basic human relationships, is of great importance.
So thank you. We got a question from Kamal. I will hand over the mic to Kamal, and if you would like to introduce yourself and ask your question, feel free. And I push the allow to talk button right now.
A really nice webinar and lots of advices. Thank you very much. So my question is really, should we have a patent already to approach Big Pharma for a collaboration, or it's probably better not? What do you think about that?
Yes, so I think it is good to have a patent, but so normally what I would ask you as a first step is to have a non-confidential discussion. So forward to me the non-confidential slide deck, so something which is published and known in the public domain. And this presentation is very important for me, this material is very important for me to engage my internal scientists in the first initial discussions. Now, the next step is, if there is some interest, then we go under the CDA and we have a confidential discussion with this. And the CDA gives you an opportunity to talk confidentially about your molecules, and also, bounds us to keep this confidential. I also have to say that the corporate business development is behind the wall, so we are not really, so the confidential discussion stays with us, and we're not a part of our R&D organization, and this allows us to not cross-contaminate the internal R&D and the business development. So to tell the story short, it's good to have a patent before going and chatting. If you don't have a patent, make sure you sign the CDA.
Okay, thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Kamal. Let's go to the next question. It's from Joanne Taylor, and I will give you the mic right now. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks, Natalia, for this great webinar. I was wondering, is it useful to get an internal champion within Lilly to approach your department? If you know scientists and you know that they may be interested in your approach, or do partnerships always start with you?
So it is, if you know the internal champion, it's good to talk, but to this person. But the real transaction is happening within the business development. So it makes sense, if he's really willing to bring it to Lilly, to ask him to approach us, internally. What I will not recommend is that you first contact the business development, and then in the next call which we are arranging, you are demanding that this internal champion is absolutely necessary to be, is a person to be on the call. Right. Because very often this internal champion might not be really a decision maker, or might be a more let's say not the best person to be in the current call or something. So the short answer, I would approach business development first if you're looking for transaction, if you're looking for advice, and then my team will look for the best internal champion for you within Lilly. But if you're looking for not for transaction but for an advice, you may of course keep the relationship with the internal champion you have and use him as an advice for development of your product.
That's very helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. One question from my end, Natalia. So my perception after 14 years in the industry is that it's less, of course, it's about the technology and the product, and we need to do something helpful for the patients. But when I think of building a company, it's not a transactional system that I buy a technology from a research organization, I develop some data, then I hand it over, and I'm out of to the pharma industry. I'm out of the game. It really looks to me that we need to have an open innovation, that we need to build in emerging technologies the entire value chain. So let's stay in touch with the research organization. Let's look for pharma partners as a collaborative partner for a longer time and not a transactional system. Would you see it the same way?
Absolutely, and I think this is emerging here in Europe right now, and I think the part of this value chain, of this kind of innovation value chain, is as we mentioned, is the universities, the educational institutes, let's say like this, where lots of innovation and lots of patents are generated. Then venture funds, which we were talking about earlier. Then accelerators. We're also working with a number of accelerators, and I think this is another big, innovation hubs, which are a part of the innovation hubs. Then of course we need to grow those serial entrepreneurs, which are coaching those companies moving forward, and of course pharma. So it's all kind of has to be playing in one direction, and I agree with you that it's not just we do this and you do that. There are the borders between these are going to be, I think, will be turned off slowly. So there will be lots of in-between organizations. Maybe worth to mention, in Eli Lilly, we have this organization which is called Chorus, which we very often use as a parallel, is a kind of is a biotech within Eli Lilly, which is focused on the quick clinical proof of concept. So most of the assets they take are from the pre-IND, and they are able to move it quickly through the proof of concept studies, so that Lilly can decide whether they want to incorporate it into their pipeline or diversify this opportunity. So it's a kind of, this is a part of the things which is, it's not exactly pharma, it's not exactly biotech, it's a biotech within pharma, which is a...
That's good to hear. We have other question coming in. I would like to call up Christoph Neumann with a question. So you get the mic right now. Hello, Christoph.
Yes, hello. Hi, Natalia. How you doing? It's Christoph from IPDX.
Hi, Christoph. Nice to hear from you.
So on the topic of building trust and relationships and engaging early on with pharma, what is like is there a fine line between having too many early discussions and potentially becoming blacklisted as a potential partner, and just being able to update the pharma company and kind of building the relationship in a positive way?
No, you cannot be blacklisted, Christoph. Okay. This is, I think, the one advice. So, so I don't think. So first of all, when one approached me, I normally would say, well, so because I'm a first door in a way. So so I would say whether that's maybe this package is a little bit too early to approach, to me, engage the internal scientists. We would need to see ABC before I approach them. So I don't want to burn your name now. Let us wait for some additional data. So this is the kind of feedback and advice you'll get from me straight away anyhow. And then I don't think the company can really blacklist you, and I would advise not to give up and keep the relationships, at least coming back with your progress once in at least in a half a year, to keep you also on the top of the lists, no, you won't be blacklisted. It is, I mean, so the one thing before you approach the company, you look at the indications we are working on, and if you see the complementarity of your technologies with the indications and you are moving within these directions, you have to approach again and again. You are not going to be blacklisted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Natalia.
That's great. Let's go to the next question. It comes from, I hope I spelled the name right, Chuck Sagu. I hand you over to Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Natalia and Christian. Thank you so much for organizing this session. It's really very useful and helpful information. So Natalia,
welcome.
Yes. So Natalia, you mentioned about how what sort of information should we put on a 15-minute slide deck for pitch. Would you mind please repeating those again, because I really missed your points, some important points.
So there are four things which I would like to see: is team, and team includes also your team, but also advisory board.
Yes.
Second is science. So show me the compelling science, explain me your story. Third is a competition, and how do you differentiate from the competition? And the fourth is, what is your ask?
Right. Okay, cool.
What exactly you're looking from the partnership.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is it possible if you could also share with us your, you mentioned that there is, if we want to reach out companies like yours, that we could attend several conferences, bio innovation conferences, or via LinkedIn. Would it be possible to also share with us your email address, or how we can reach out to you directly?
So partnership conferences is a very good opportunity. What I also would say, before you reach to the company, and I think I mentioned it several times, study what is the company's current indications, scientific areas of interest. And this is published online, so you can just Google Eli Lilly scientific areas of interest, and you'll find a link with the explanations where this company is working on. What I would not recommend is, for example, coming to a diagnostic company with a therapeutic asset, or vice versa. I do see some companies with diagnostics that come into Eli Lilly, but we're not in the diagnostic field.
Sure.
A part of maybe a small part of our Alzheimer's disease franchise. So we are not a diagnostic companies, and similar to if you are a medical device company, do look at the which kind of compounds we have in the pipeline, and the medical device for let's say infectious diseases or women's health will be absolutely irrelevant for Lilly, because we're not really in these therapeutic areas. So first, prepare to whom so find your ideal partner. Second, tell us about your breakthrough science, as we discussed. And the third one, which I mentioned to Christoph, do not give up. So if this is your perfect partner and you feel that you'll be a great complement, if we say no, I normally don't say no, but I give a feedback. And this feedback, just work on this feedback and come again in half a year and say, here, I've done this 1, 2, 3 things you asked me. How about continuation of our discussion. So because no is not really no, it's most of the time is not now.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thanks. Let's go to the next question. It's from Yolanda Ramiro, and I will hand you the mic. Welcome, Yolanda.
Hello, Natalia. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ramiro from MaxMix. And how the patient voice could be more fully incorporated through the development cycle?
This is a very, very good question, Yolanda. And I think so we do have various ways of working on it. The one is working with the patient advocacy groups, and this is mostly not really on the business development side, but as Eli Lilly as a whole is working with the patient advocacy groups and understanding what their real needs is. We're also working with the caregivers, because for the neurodegenerative diseases, often the caregivers are those which are providing voice for these patients. And the other thing which I saw in some companies is really hiring. Sometimes is an interesting idea is to hire patients, and if you are developing a device for multiple sclerosis, it could be very efficient to have someone with multiple sclerosis within your company who can help you on the designing the device which would be the most useful for these patients. And this is a very, very important point, and I've seen lessons learned in other companies where we would develop a device for a patient without talking to a patient. But I think now we're living in a different era, and I do see this transformation in Big Pharma, but also in smaller companies on incorporating the patient voice from the beginning on. Very important point.
Yeah. So should be as early as possible, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Next question is coming from, I hope I spelled the name right. I'm coming from Austria, from the tree country where Arnold Schwarzenegger was born. So maybe I spell it in an Austrian way. It's from Varvara Melikova.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for my question is about your role models. Professional role models, people who you follow in LinkedIn, people you like to reach and talk on professional conferences, and your favorite books.
Oh, that's a tough question. So I'm really not prepared for that one. So of course, my role models in the professional sense are people with whom I worked and previously. So I prefer to choose my role models, people who I know really personally, and not so much people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whom I don't know personally. And also, not only use them as my role models, but also, having a discussion with them time to time on how do I progress in my career. So I was absolutely blessed, and I'm still blessed working with the great people. I had a really several people in my career, or my bosses, who've been very supportive, starting from my mentor for a PhD, who is still a very good friend of the family right now. And we have very frequent interactions and discussions, not only about the career, but beyond, about our life. And also the people with whom I worked in Merck. I do have several people who've been really very instrumental, for me, and being my role models in terms of what they achieved in their career, but also in terms of how they managed and developed people. And also, I'm very impressed by my current UK team, and the person with whom I'm working right now, my current boss, is an absolutely a role model for me in terms of experience in business development and also management and inspiring, being an inspiring leader. So in terms of books, I have a number of books which I like. So in terms of professional books, I think one book, maybe this is more for ladies, but it's been written a long time ago. I guess it's called Girls Won't Take the Corner Office, or Nice Girl Won't Take a Corner Office, or something like this. This is, I think, written by the mentor for women in particular, and I think I found this very valuable advice there. I think many of them are outdated already, because I feel women are now playing a much stronger role, particularly in Europe. Looking at Angela Merkel and the other great leaders, but still I think is very relevant in terms of how you survive in a corporate environments and how you really build yourself. Yes, and maybe the other book is called Radical Candor, if I'm not mistaken. This is about people management and how do you really say truth without offending people. Which I found a very strong book as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a good question.
Natalia, thank you very much for your time. I think we're coming to the end of our recording session, so it's at the end of this hour. I would like to ask you one final question. So let's assume I'm a scientist and I pump into you somewhere in a conference, and we don't have much time. We only have 15 seconds, and they ask you, what's the most important advice that you can give me right now? What would it be?
If you feel I'm a right partner for you, don't be afraid. Come and talk to me. And if I say not now, come again.
I absolutely agree to that. Let's just keep trying. Natalia, thank you very much for your time and for this amazing hour. I'm looking forward to see you somewhere, somewhen at the conference in the future in real life. Have a great day.
I'm looking forward for exciting novel technologies, and I'm really looking forward to meet exciting people, maybe participants of this talk as well. Thank you so much, Christian, for organizing it. I really appreciate our discussion.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it as well. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please share the podcast and make sure you've subscribed. Have a great day.